Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart. In this video, I'm very lucky to sit down and chat to the sculptor of the BSB for my Renegade Crowns, Yongjuk Kim from Kim's Talisman. We talk about Warhammer, all of the things that he enjoys about it, his sculpting and his own YouTube channel. Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Counter-Attack Bases. They stock a wide range of counters, gaming aids and movement trays for multiple game systems and offer custom items to suit your club, your event or even your podcast or YouTube channel. Check out the link in the video description. Yongjuk, thank you very much for agreeing to come on the channel and chat Warhammer. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, thank you very much. It's slightly different time zones. We're not too far apart. It works. This
Yeah.
works. This works just about works all right for us. So before we get down into all the details about who you are and what your channel is and stuff, I'm going to start you off with what is it you love about Warhammer?
Oh, wow. Okay. A lot of things. I'd say the biggest thing I love, honestly, are like the community and the people. My oldest brother, Yongjuk, I think in my Araby video, I thank him a lot. He got me into this game when I was 11 or 10, so that's like 17 years ago. And my older brothers are, much older than me. They would go away from home. So I'd go to the local games workshop and play with those guys a lot. So the biggest draw for Warhammer is actually the community aspect and then the miniatures and the world afterwards.
Fantastic. And it's not the answer that a lot of people will give. Community is important, but as a
Yeah.
draw,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. It probably wouldn't have been my first answer. So you mentioned a little bit about the start when you started. How did you get into Warhammer? Give us a bit more detail around that story.
Yeah. So obviously my older two brothers, I forgot how my oldest one found Games Workshop, but he came home with these, little figures. And obviously he wants to play with people. He looked at me and my other brother and said, "We're all going to play this game." And I said, "Okay, cool." And my parents were very busy growing up. I had a lot of babysitters. And so with all that free time, I started building and I grew to love the miniature and I'm a big painter at heart. So I think it just kind of flowed into it naturally. So
It was the hobby side of it that really sort of drew you, and the
yeah,
the 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 hands-on side of stuff,
yeah,
rather than going to play the games and things. So,
yeah,
and how quickly did you start to sculpt and make your own things? Is that something right from an early age, or
yeah.
is that?
I'd say the very first attempt was when I was, I think, 12 or 13, and my oldest brother can confirm. I took a Rohan Rider and I tried
Mhm.
sculpting him, and he ended up looking like a big blob of green stuff. Then he told me, "Yo, you suck at this." So I stopped sculpting completely until around the COVID time, like 2 or 3 years ago, during my time in Lord of the Rings, actually, I started playing Moria, and that was the time when a lot of things were out of stock, and I wanted a Watcher in the Water, and I thought I'm not gonna pay like $100 for like a fine cast model, so I
Yeah.
drank some soju for 8 hours, grabbed some Sculpey, and I made my first Watcher in the Water, and then from there I just kept diving into it. So
Quite a challenging first proper sculpt
yeah.
to go for. And for those of you who only know Warhammer and don't know Lord of the Rings, Watch in the Water, this is a big water-based octopus, multi-tentacle beast, quite a big on a big base as well. Wow, that's quite a quite
Yeah.
a big thing. So when you first started, was it mainly Warhammer Fantasy, or did you play other games as well?
Yeah, so actually, that's when I discovered your work. And guys, I said this off camera. I'm a big fan of Stewart. Actually, during before COVID and during COVID, I did a lot of Lord of the Rings sculpting. I went by Kim's Painting Corner and Drums in the Deep. So if you guys were active in Middle Earth during that time, you may have heard of my sculpting. So I really focused sculpting for MESBG because a lot of the miniatures during that time were out of stock and I did tend to find about 6 years ago, the conversion scene in MESBG was practically dead. So I started sculpting a lot, and then, truth be told, I got burnt out and bored of Lord of the Rings slightly. and I made my way back to Old World because it actually was one of my earlier games I played. And Warhammer Fantasy, there's so much creativity that I, I can probably sculpt for the rest of my life. But for Lord of the Rings, after sculpting for like 3 years, there's not much more I wanted to do. So I think I hit like a roadblock and just lost interest, I think, overall.
Yeah, yeah, that's understandable. I think in terms of the films, they covered those miniatures so many times
Yeah.
over, so much so that they were expanding into things that were maybe a single line written in an appendices in a
Yeah.
book, weren't they? So they really expanded. Whereas Warhammer, it feels like your imagination's a little bit more free. What edition
Yeah.
of Warhammer was it when you were a kid and you first started picking up miniatures?
Yes, sir. The first one I got into was, I believe it was Skull Pass. So that was
Hmm.
seventh edition, I believe.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, we played that for probably the last tail end because the book I recall buying was the Chaos Demons book. And then
Hmm.
at my local store, they told me I couldn't play it because it was apparently like overpowered. So I stopped playing fantasy. I played 40K. So my earliest recollection is seventh edition, but over the years I went back to play sixth edition because I
Right.
found it to be really beautiful in like the hobby aspect, the army list they made. And then Old World, naturally we're playing it because it's the only game that's really supported. So you find a lot more people to play. And I do know Old World has kind of problems, but I can look past it for the people and then just for Warhammer Fantasy overall.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I played a few editions, and Old World has got no more problems than any other edition had. And they they were right. Demons were quite overpowered, along with dark elves and vampire counts in
Yeah.
that edition, I believe. But to stop you playing them, that seems a little bit harsh.
No.
Definitely. So let's talk a little bit about um, your channel. And I think that feeds into a lot of the stuff we'll be talking about today. So, your channel, Kim's Talisman, explain to the viewers if they haven't seen it before what it's all about.
Yeah, so I think Kim's Talisman was, I think, the very beginning, supposed to be like a diary for myself. So it started off with me kind of sculpting Chaos Demons initially. That's my favorite faction. Obviously, I played them when I was really young. And it kept for me like I'm gonna call it like a mental guideline. I think everyone's been through bouts of, I'm not gonna say depression, but in the blues. And my fiance really encouraged me to create this as when I left Lord of the Rings, it wasn't on the best terms, in my opinion. A little bit of, I'll call it cyberbullying, to put it lightly, during the end. And so I started doing Kim's Talisman for me, just to like catalog what I'm doing. And eventually it kind of grew more and more into I love Oldhammer so much, but Oldhammer in the context of like third edition to fourth edition, that's like an era that I feel like a lot of people don't know about actually. I know like my favorite content creators, not only you, but like Crown of Command and then Anvil of Doom, they all cover fifth edition, a little bit to sixth edition, but that third to fourth feels like the Wild West. You really don't see these miniatures. And people know I'm 27, I'm very young, but when I got into the hobby, my parents obviously were doing blue collar jobs. They were working really hard to send us to school. So my only way to buy miniatures for me was through eBay. And during that time, like 17 years ago, these third and fourth edition models were dirt cheap, like $20 got me 50 of them. And they're ugly. I understand that. But for me, that's actually what I grew up with. I know a lot of people think, oh, it's like nostalgia. But for me, 17 years ago, that was actually my main form of miniatures coming in. And I just fell in love with all these goofy, really crazy sculpts. And converting them is something that I feel like is a lost art in Oldhammer. And I've mentioned this before. It's a bit taboo in Oldhammer. I'd say a lot of people do consider it wrong to chop this rare miniature. But then, like I told Crown of Command, I'm not trying to be mean. People have had 30 plus years to get that miniature. If you haven't gotten it now, I think it's a bit too late. So the goal of the channel now is to cover the obscure miniatures for fantasy, create custom armies, because I kind of want to encourage more people to not just buy the modern miniatures. In my opinion, I think Old World is like a love letter to all 30 plus years of fantasy. So it should be, you should get the new models and maybe a character or two from these older generations and have it all on the table. So I think that's the main goal of the channel, to show the history of actual Warhammer, to convert and show people you can do a lot more. And then I guess the second biggest point is to encourage sculpting, because I know a lot of people ask how how much formal training have I had? I never did. It was that Soju and Watcher in the Water model that got me into it. And I do feel like a lot of people are kind of put down from sculpting. So I kind of want to show them constantly that you can sculpt anything, and even if you mess up, it's fine. We all have to start somewhere. So sorry for that long-winded answer.
Oh no, we want long-winded answers. It's funny, the miniatures, the era you're talking about, it was the year I first started because I'm old.
Oh.
But you're right. Not many, so many people look fourth, fifth, sixth, and beyond. And those miniatures, the old Hammer miniatures, you don't see as much of because they are rare, and they're definitely not as cheap as you managed to pick them up anymore. They're highly collectible now, but. I love seeing what you do with them on the channel. So talk a little bit more about the content that you do on the channel as well. So you've mentioned that you're painting, you're sculpting, you're creating these armies. So how do you sort of display that on the channel?
Yeah, so typically I'd say starting off with like a test model, I usually have an introduction to like a concept of the army. And a lot of my, I think, creations come from a small blurb. It can be like one or two sentences in an old lore. And I'll read that and I think, wow, what a beautiful part of Warhammer that's going to be forgotten. And so it typically starts from looking at the old classical range. I'll grab some test models, make an introduction video, and it's like a concept, right? Like this is the goal, the vision, and I kind of modify the lore to kind of fit in nicely and make the army playable. So that's one, I guess half my content is creating these obscure armies that can be played in the old world. Then another portion is, of course, the battle reports. That's where I just want to show old world shouldn't be all about the competitive. It shouldn't be about the game itself and just playing with friends. I like the old handheld, like mini wargaming era when they used to hold it. I do love all the fancy production, but there's something about you can see like a shaky cam and dice rolling that I do miss. And then another aspect of the channel is the competitive scene, which is like being hypocritical. I play a lot in the DMV area, and not to brag, last year I went to I think 17 events, and I think I got best overall three times in a row. So it was a successful year for me last year, and I have a whole shelf of trophies now. So I think this year
It's
this year
good.
is to help it's to help more grow the community more and encourage more people. I had my time in the sun. It's time to, have others enjoy it too. So
I think what that shows is that all areas of the hobby are valid, and that I get a little bit frustrated at times where the discourse is often people must sit in certain camps. Oh, you're
yeah,
competitive, or oh, you're a painter, or
yeah,
and that's fine if you are one of those things. But also,
yeah, yeah,
you can be all of those things and just enjoy the hobby the way you want to enjoy it, and you can
yeah,
do all of those things.
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about the other side of your channel. Though you've got these lovely, I would say, sort of almost production logs that go on and on for your army projects, where you
Yeah.
introduce a new miniature and you're sculpting and you're painting and you're growing your collection in your project as you go. So, what was the idea behind those?
I think that stemmed again from the very beginning of the channel where it was meant to like keep my mental state good and just showcase the stuff. And I think this is not a jab at the overall sphere of wargaming content. I think I like your channel a lot too because it fits the vibe of you do show the progression. I think the reason I do it too is I want to show people that normal people have, real lives. And so when we build an army, it will take months. I kind of don't like some, I don't want to again attack other channels, but when they show painting an army in 24 hours, to me, that can kind of discourage a lot of newer players because now that there's an expectation when these bigger guys can finish an army in a day. And then when you're working on an army and you're like, why is it taking so long? It can be discouraging. And to be honest, that's not the reality of it, unless you do a quick airbrush and a quick only contrast painting scheme. So I think the idea behind the diary blog aspect is to kind of show people this is what it takes to make a real army. And I think the biggest one is enjoying the process. I do think this doesn't apply just to this hobby, but in a lot of other hobbies, any collector hobbies, people are losing the concept that it is a hobby. You should enjoy every step. Don't feel pressure. And I think when you watch the greater YouTube of wargaming, there's that invisible pressure of I have to finish this on a timely manner. I have to get it done. For me, it's no, I'll work on one army for like 2 months, like my cult. And then I say, you know what? I'm a bit burnt out. Let me do my half orc. So I started a different army. So I kind of want to show like a more realistic view of what it takes to create an army, but at least enjoying the process too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you touched on a little bit a couple of your projects. So what projects have you got on the go at the moment?
Well, so I do have, of course, the Cult of the Possessed. That's an army that I really love because I feel like Chaos overall has changed so much from its original inception, where, in the lore, you hear all these books, all these stories. There are hundreds of human cultists in the Empire. And then you look at the table, they're all Conan the Barbarian Vikings. Like, how can, like, you cannot be like Arnold Schwarzenegger hiding in the empire. We'll see you a mile away, right? And so the idea of the cult is to show like the actual espionage, the actual corruption that takes place. And that army I really do love. I did acknowledge the Capriote because of the real life connotations in American history with certain groups. But for me, that still, unfortunately, is what I view original chaos to look like. And so I'm
Mhm.
trying to be very respectful to it. And I think a lot of my armies, like my Araby, I got inspired by real life Ottomans and Persians because the original Araby is very stereotypical. And I think when I do an army, I like the concept, but I want to gather real life influences to make it a bit more in line, but at the same time, still feel true to the army itself. So I'm never trying to be, like we have to always be politically correct, but at the same time, if you look at real life, like Ottomans, the color scheme I did was inspired by real life Ottomans more than I think Araby in the lore is black and red. That would be very boring to paint for a very exotic army. I could not do that for a whole faction. And then the next army is my half orcs, and this one is a army that probably only has like a paragraph of lore. And it's an army that I think I mentioned in my video, I kind of feel a personal connection with because they're rejected by both orcs and humans. And very slightly, my background, I'm a mixed Asian, Malaysian, Korean, Chinese. And unfortunately, in a Korean culture, I am not the most favored because I'm mixed with my Malaysian Chinese side. So I felt a
Right.
little bit like an outcast growing up, which is unfortunate. Back then, I had to quit my swing club because me and my two siblings were really bullied by the parents actually when they found out. And then one summer school, we had to leave too because I can't speak fluent Korean and they would really bully you. What kind of Korean are you? I'm like, oh, oh, I'm so sorry. And that's unfortunate because I'm my half Korean, so I'm so proud to be Korean. But growing up, I felt like an outcast. And so when I found the half orcs back then, I'm like, oh my God, you're like me, but uglier. So those are the two main armies I'm working on. I still have two more from my 2026 New Year challenge. I want to make four New Year or new armies for the new year. So
Four armies. That's a lot.
yes, sir.
It's something I'd love to achieve, well, I probably will but it won't be the four I plan to. That's for sure. And what about your other armies? So they're your projects for this year. You've had
Yes,
other
sir.
projects you've worked on before. What other
Yes, sir.
armies do you have in your collection?
Oh, wow. So I have, of course, I think the one that I've I'm really attached to is my Oldhammer Araby army. and I've gotten very lovely comments. They've called me the Grand Sultan because I probably have the largest Oldhammer Araby army in the world at the moment. So that army I'm really attached to. It's meant for my oldest brother as a gift because of he got me into the game. So that army is very close to my heart 'cause I really put a lot of hours into it. Besides the Araby, I have my Tzeentch and Nurgle demons from the third edition era, and that one I'm really proud of. I sculpted all these custom miniatures. Then I have a Kev Adams Night Goblin army, and that one I did sculpt the Manglers to match the era, and they're really goofy, goofy looking. And then I think I have, let's see, I had an army called Things That Go Bump in the Night. It's all about the night horrors in the Citadel catalog, but I'm gonna have to readjust that army because after a while, it looks a little bit too dumb when I see like a pumpkin guy next to a hunchback, next to like I don't know, it just looks very silly, like a mud man. I'm thinking, I think most of my armies, it looks like an army, but that army looked a little bit should be a skirmish game like Mordheim more than
Oh
a
yeah.
real army. So
Sounds fun though. Sounds really fun, but maybe I know what you mean here. And what about what other things would you like to do? So have you got like a dream army that you'd like to build or make that you haven't got around to yet?
I think some of them are actually on the way this coming year. I'm just waiting to when I have enough time to actually focus on them. I think, I guess for the listeners, this year I actually will finish one personal army for myself. Hopefully in the next like 2, 3 months I can start that project. But I do have quite a few armies I still have in my mind for Oldhammer. But I think so far I am hitting all of the goals. Nothing out of reach right now. The only limitation would be I have a vast collection of the old hammer miniatures. Eventually, it will run out, so I have to be careful of how many models I cut up before I have to go seeking more of them. So,
I was going to ask about that. So you've obviously got your collection of armies. You must have a good source of old hammer miniatures. That are these all the ones that you bought cheaply in the past when you were younger, or is there
so,
have you got a very expensive old hammer hobbit or a habit on eBay now?
so I, ashamed to say both. So, I'm very lucky that I actually still keep in contact with some of the sellers since 17 years ago, and they still recall me. So I do get quite a few minis on a discount. At the same time, I want to thank any listener who has done it. But recently, when I've ordered miniatures from either eBay or Facebook, when they see my name and the shipping address, I don't think there's any other young Duke Kim in the world, I'll be honest. And so they usually send a letter saying, "Are you Kim's talisman?" I'm like, "Yes." Then they say, "I'm such a big fan. Why don't you keep the minis? Here's a refund. I'm excited to see what you're going to convert next." So I'm like, wow,
Oh
I
wow.
really, really appreciate that. So I'm very lucky. The community has been gifting me miniatures for the channel. And I'm very privileged to be in that position. But at the same time, I do purchase them. Um, through the people I know or on eBay if I just see a good deal, I'll just buy it. Like, oh, okay, I can use these 10 for a different project down the line. So,
I mean, some of the things that you show on your videos are just so rare that I hate to know what you spend on them sometimes, but some
so
beautiful,
one of
beautiful
them,
minis I couldn't
yes,
even
sir.
remember, to be honest, that they existed. Some of the half orc minis that we're talking,
Yes, sir.
yeah, pre-slaughter stuff, some of it as well. So, yeah, wow, incredible, incredible stuff. Let's talk a little bit more about your sculpting. So you talked about your first miniature, and then you started working on other things. How's your sculpting grown over the years there? What sort of materials do you use?
Materials, do you mean like the clay or like the
Yeah,
tools?
you mainly green stuff, or do you use other sculpting materials as well?
Hmm. I'd say during my days of Lord of the Rings during COVID, I switched from green stuff to milliput and green stuff, just following the trends from other sculptors. But as of now, I kind of stick to green stuff. I do know real sculptors. I'm not actually trained properly, but real sculptors would say it's like an amateur material. You should mix it
Mm.
with other clays. To me, I just find comfort in the green stuff. I feel like I kind of know the full properties and the full extent of it. So I primarily focus on just pure green stuff, and I dabble a bit in milliput for like big armatures because it dries pretty fast and it becomes like a rock. But
Mm.
any new clay, I try to avoid it because I'm a little bit lazy to discover something new. So
Well,
yeah.
I think lots of people use green stuff, especially older school style painters would have painters sculptors would have used that. So for the work you're doing, it makes a lot of sense. And if it's something you're comfortable with, makes an awful lot of sense to do it as well. Have you got any tips for people who are thinking about doing a little bit of sculpting? Any bad habits that that people shouldn't do? Should people use Vaseline or things like that to keep the tools smooth? I hear conflicting opinions all the time on that. From your
Mm.
experience, what do you think?
Uh, so I'd say the biggest tip I have for people is actually avoid the Vaseline. I do think it does make the tools glide much easily over green stuff, but I've also seen people, they don't explain it fully. When you have that Vaseline, it does glide easily, but when the tool has it on the green stuff, it starts to build up, and now the whole surface is this really like slick, oily surface. And so if you don't have the practice, your tools might be going all over the place, or the green stuff itself won't have a good connection point to the plastic or metal. And so when you push at it, it might flick right off. So my
Right.
biggest tip would be just stick to water or your saliva and just use that. And the second tip would be get a pair of silicone tipped tools. They're kind of designed, the clay shapers are designed for sculpting. So you don't need Vaseline, you don't need anything like that. Again, I am not professionally trained, so my advice, take it with a grain of salt. But in my experience, for new people, just get simple green stuff, get silicone tipped tools, and then just practice sculpting. The only way to improve is trying it yourself, and I think the second tip would be don't be ashamed of your first sculpts. The first thing you do will not look like the Araby guy sculpted for you, and that's no shame in it. We all start somewhere. So don't be discouraged is my biggest advice, and just keep practicing.
Yeah. I think that's always good advice. Is just get on with it and enjoy it, and don't put too much pressure on yourself. Do you
Well, I
have
have
a
a question
favorite
for you
sculptor?
actually.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
I was going to ask you real fast. Because I've watched your stuff for so long, but you primarily do a lot of painting. Do you actually sculpt a lot, or have you dabbled in it a lot more? Or
Very rarely. A little bit of fur here and there, a little bit of
oh, okay.
a cape once in a while.
Oh, okay.
Green. It's very much green stuff, kind of sculpting to fix or repair something, and less of that now. Something I was going to mention to you earlier is that when I got back into the hobby around 2009, 2010 era, people use green stuff a lot more. There's a lot more metal miniatures around. There's a lot more need to do a bit of green stuff here and there. And I think as we move more and more into plastic, a lot of stuff that was done with green stuff has been replaced by kit bashing. Just
Mm,
you don't need the green stuff always these days. You've got good filler. It's easier to cut parts and
yeah.
stuff. So yeah, probably less and less myself as I use more and more plastic and resin miniatures. I'm more likely to use some filler and sand it down or something. So there's less sculpting with that. So a little bit.
So are
I'd
you
like to do more, but it's time, I suppose, as
okay?
well. Sometimes I was never great though. I was okay. I could do the odd little thing, replace a finger, something like that, maybe on a model
Okay.
where it's broken. But sculpt a whole face or something like that. No, 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 no. It would look like a child had done it with some Play-Doh or something, probably.
Are you not a fan of are you not a fan of metal miniatures anymore? Do you prefer the plastic kits nowadays?
I love metal miniatures.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't like them so much for gaming armies all the time because
Okay.
I'm not a huge fan of varnishing too much because it changes the color. With plastic
Yes, yes.
miniatures, you can get away from it. With metal miniatures, you need to just add a lot more layers of varnish, and it always
Yeah.
the paint job never looks the same afterwards. So I try to varnish
Okay.
before my final coat. That's the main reason. But
Okay.
other than that, I don't really have any preference on materials outside of that. It's
Okay.
purely that kind of if it's going to sit on a shelf, then no problem at all. I love the charm of some of those old miniatures. So yeah, back to what I was saying to you, or asking you is, do you have a favorite sculptor over the years?
Yeah, so I feel like a hypocrite because in my videos I talk so much of Nick Bibby was the one that I believe, if I'm correct in my knowledge of Oldhammer lore, he left Games Workshop just due to, I think, a pay difference or some disagreement. But his sculpts were extremely detailed. I know he's a bronze sculptor as of now, and his
Hmm.
stuff is still beautiful as ever. But recently, I think mainly because of the Talisman second edition range of miniatures and the half orcs, Ali Morrison has become, I think, my favorite sculptor. His face or the proportions he sculpts, they are ugly, but there's so much charm to the proportions that I just don't get tired of painting them. So he is my favorite sculptor at the moment. So
I can understand that. I think most things from that era, I so you asked me about what I liked in terms of miniatures. I think there's something joyful. I always get loads more joy painting an old hammer miniature. I think there's just something about the slightly comical um, proportions, maybe,
yeah.
especially if it's a dwarf or a goblin or an orc or something. They're just nearly always good fun. And if you're just painting a miniature for the enjoyment of it,
Mhm.
there's a different kind of joy. And then thinking again about your channel, what are your plans for the future for your channel? Where would you like to see it go?
Yeah, so I think definitely now I've been a bit more aggressively pushing at it as I kind of do want to treat it as a real part-time job, if anything. Obviously, I have
Mhm.
my real job with the family, so that's like my main focus. But I think the channel's been growing at a pretty healthy rate. I think we started, I think officially next month it'd be 2 years old, and we're over 4,500 subscribers. So I feel really blessed to have grown quite a bit, especially with the new realm of YouTube. It feels very odd compared to back then. And I'm getting
Yeah.
quite a few commissions nowadays for sculpting. And it does feel like I could actually sustain this. I used to do a lot of commission painting back then, but it's such a different take to do sculpting out of it feels more rewarding where I sculpt one character miniature and he pays as much as me painting like 20 figures. And I kind of prefer that because I can take my time. It feels more unique owning like a custom miniature rather than me painting 20 stock Empire foot soldiers. So I would like to see this grow into more of a real part-time. And I'm very blessed by my YouTube members, by my customers right now and I hope I can continue without burning myself out. So that's the name of the game.
Yeah, that's always the way. So you have a YouTube membership. Do you have a Patreon or anything at this time? Or?
So I this is very funny to say. I only have a YouTube membership because on Patreon I got banned, and I don't know why. So my fiance had to see what happened. So I made the Patreon page, and the next day I got an email saying I'm banned from Patreon. So I showed my fiance, what did I do wrong? She looked at it. It's the same thing as my YouTube members. I emailed them. They never emailed me back, and that was like a year ago. So I just said I can't use Patreon. I'll just stick to
Wow,
my YouTube membership. So
that's bizarre. God knows what you've
yeah.
done.
Ah,
That's
it's exactly the same thing as my YouTube members, like the description. And she checked it over. I don't know what I did. I emailed them. They never got back. And I said, okay, I'm gonna stick with my YouTube
uh,
membership. So
wow. Well,
yeah,
that's a shame. It's probably some automatic bot that's picked up something incorrectly. I imagine.
yeah.
What a shame.
So
But at least you see you have your
yeah,
membership, and people
yes,
can
sir.
find you for your channel that way. And you've got Instagram as well that can
Yes,
people
sir.
can find you and you share your things. If people want to get a commission with you, how's best to get in contact with you?
I usually ask them to, I don't know, usually ask them to email me. I think in my description, I put down my like business email. It's just kinstabletop@gmail.com. And usually I prefer email because in my line of work with my properties, I look at my business email all the time. So it feels more formal than
Hmm.
people. Sometimes they reach on me through Facebook. They find my name, which sometimes I don't like. It's my private account. I'm getting requests and I'm thinking, this is my personal account. And then on Instagram, they do DM me. I prefer email. It just feels more official
Hmm.
than random messages from like Discord or anything else. So.
That's absolutely fair enough. You do have a Discord, don't you? That's linked to your membership for your channel, I think,
Yes,
don't you?
sir. Yes, sir. That it feels really good. A lot of the YouTube members have been sharing their army, and it feels really good to see everyone chiming in. And then I used to do every week on Thursday, we would have like a voice chat. I just sit in my little voice channel, and for like 2 hours, anyone can hop on and we can talk. But
Yeah.
then recently, it's been so busy that I can't do it. I'm going to start it again, but not right now. So, I mean, I guess I could, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you more, like if you had obviously I sculpted you and I feel bad. I'll apologize to your listeners. I cold messaged Stuart. He didn't know who I was. I just said, "Hey, I love your work. I love your Renegade Crowns. Can I sculpt your miniature?" And I guess for me to you, is there any other old hammer army that, you really want to do or you thought about, but haven't gotten a chance to, dive into it?
Oh, I don't know. There's so many. I have a regret. I have a regret when the end of eighth edition, before the world was blown up, I sold off a fully metal dwarf army, loads and loads of really old miniatures, a lot of Marauder, nearly all the Marauder dwarfs that existed, loads of stuff. And it's the only army regret I've ever had through wargaming in general, because normally when stuff gets old, I improve as a painter and I want to paint something new anyway. And that's the only army I look back on now and think, wow, I wish I didn't get rid of it because obviously it's all metal. I could have stripped it and painted it as many times as I wanted to. The only thing that remains of it is my goblobber that's in my dwarf army now.
Oh,
So I still
okay.
have a
Wow.
goblobber. But yeah, so yeah, I wish I never got rid of that, and it's too expensive to rebuy all of those things now.
So I guess
Yeah.
if you don't mind, one more question then, or is your channel, I always watch as many videos as I can from your work, and it does seem like your primary focus is now old world. I guess, do you
Hmm.
intend to continue doing it? And do you like the state of the old world, or are you doing it mainly because it is Warhammer Fantasy, it's still in the world, but you still have maybe some issues with how GW did it with the legacy armies? Because I know you just made a video talking about
Hmm.
the legacy armies and could they have a backdoor way to get them back into the game?
Yeah. Um, I mean, in terms of the channel, yeah, it covers any wargaming. And over the time, I have played lots of different things, and I'm sure I'll play different things in the future. And Old World is fantasy, and will, I suppose to answer your question, was I will play whatever the latest version is.
Okay.
And if there is no version, I will probably play whatever is the most common community-wise. So you've got a bigger community because it's the world and the miniatures and the painting come probably before the rules for me. So
Hmm.
I can forgive bits of the rules I don't like because that's not the most
Okay.
important thing. I'm not too worried about the state of the game. I'm quite pragmatic with things. I'm quite realistic with things. Um, I, I would love those legacy factions to all come back as full factions, but also at the same time, um, they're a business and there are weird
Yeah.
decisions made in that business. Basically, I can separate the creative side of the way they produce the game from the accountancy side of Games Workshop.
Okay.
And I know that some of the creatives there would probably love to do more than they're able to,
Yeah.
and can't always get to do that. And then we don't know all the reasons why they haven't brought the legacy back. I suppose if they had brought them all back, we'd still be seeing them brought out now. It took them 2 years to do 10 factions, which is a lot anyway.
Yeah.
You get the odd comment I have in that video you talked about saying, well, they should all be back by now. Well, even if they were all coming back, they'd probably still be rolling out those factions. That's seven
Yeah.
more. They wouldn't have squeezed seven more in the last 2 years. It's just impossible. The writing
Yeah.
team is 1 to 2 people.
Hmm.
It's been no more than two, as far as I'm aware, for the entire time that the game's been out. There's
They
only
got a
so
lot to do.
many. Much they what are they going to do? So I'm very sympathetic and pragmatic about it, but from a passion point of view, I want them all back, and hopefully we'll see that in the future. We might have to be a bit patient while we wait, and the community will
Okay.
still play all of the old
Yeah.
factions
Yeah.
anyway. The community will find a way to play those games.
Yeah.
I don't want to take up too much of your time, but thank you
Hmm.
so much for agreeing to come on the channel and chat about your channel because it's great, and I wish I knew about it earlier. And I know that people watching this channel will love the stuff that you do. The battle reports are really easy to watch, lovely, and all the painting and modeling stuff will be the kind of stuff that if people are still watching this now, they're going to love your an hour or so into this chat. People are going to love your channel, so you should definitely go and check it. There'll be links in the video description of your channel, and they should definitely go and watch lots of your videos and become a member and support you and commission you to do lots of work for them as well, because it's absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you so much, Stuart. Thank you, 'cause again, I've been a big fan for many years, so I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. And thank you again to Kim for giving up your time to come and talk to us all a little bit about your Warhammer and the things you love about it. And please do go and check out his channel if you haven't already done so. If you'd like to support me, please check out all the links in my video description as well. I have a Patreon, and it is the very best way of supporting me continue to make videos like this, and the painting videos and all the reviews and all the things that come with it. And thank you to all my existing patrons for helping me make that happen. Please also check out the channel sponsor, Counterattack Bases. Lots of fantastic gaming aids for Warhammer the Old World and other games as well, and they make wonderful custom dice. But thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.